You have a headache. You reach for a small white pill. 20 minutes later, it's gone. You don't even think about it. But that pill is new. Aspirin, in the bottle you know, is only about 125 years old. Your great-great-grandparents never had it. For 300,000 years before that, humans had headaches too, and toothaches, and shattered bones grinding under the skin, and nothing. No pill, no bottle, no pharmacy. So what did they actually do with all that pain? The first answer was the ground itself. Plants. Somewhere along the Nile, people stripped the bark off white willow trees and chewed it. An Egyptian medical scroll called the Ebers Papyrus, written around 1500 BC, lists it for aches and swelling. They had no idea why it worked. It just did. Inside that bark is a molecule called salicin. Your body turns it into the same chemical that lives inside aspirin. They were chewing the drug raw, 3,000 years early. The Greek physician Hippocrates handed willow to women in labor. Same bark, same quiet relief. Nobody could explain it. And this wasn't one lucky tribe. Willow shows up in Egypt, in Greece, in ancient China. 3 worlds that never spoke to each other, all chewing the same tree for the same ache. The whole planet had quietly agreed on a painkiller, and none of them knew why. But bark is mild, and the pain got worse than bark. In ancient Turkey, they had a plant called henbane. For a screaming toothache, they'd throw its seeds onto hot coals and lean over the smoke. Those seeds are full of scopolamine and atropine, real heavy drugs. The smoke crept into the mouth and put the nerve to sleep. In Egypt and Mesopotamia, for deeper pain, they reached for the opium poppy, grown as far back as 3,400 BC. The white milk inside its pods holds morphine. The same morphine in a hospital today. They were 5,000 years early, and they had no idea what they'd found. And when plants weren't enough, they got stranger. The Egyptians had a treatment for aching joints that sounds invented. They pulled a live electric catfish out of the Nile, and they laid it on the pain. The shock numbed the nerve. It was the world's first nerve stimulation machine, and it was swimming in a river. But all of that was for pain you could point at. A wound, a joint, a bad tooth. The pain they couldn't see was the real terror. A cramp deep in the gut, a pounding behind the eyes that came from nowhere and left from nowhere. You can't wrap a bandage around that. You can't cut it out. So they reached for something else, something darker. So here's the easy story. Ancient people had herbs, plants with real chemistry, a bit of trial and error, a lot of luck. Early pharmacy in the dirt. Case closed. Well, not quite, because the plants were the gentle part. Go to a museum with a big enough collection of old skulls. Look closely. A lot of them have holes in them. Not from war, not from a fall. Clean, deliberate holes, scraped and cut into the bone while the person was still alive. It's called trepanation, and it is the oldest surgery humans have ever performed. In a French village called Ensisheim, archaeologists found a man who died around 7,000 years ago. His skull had 2 holes in it, cut at 2 different times. He survived the first one long enough to come back for a second. They did this with flint, and here's the part that stays with you. A sharpened flint blade is actually sharper than a modern steel scalpel. Some of these holes are 10 centimeters wide. A third of the skull opened up. To drain the pressure behind a headache. To let the pain out. To let the spirits out. Because that's the other half of it. To them, pain wasn't always a thing in the body. It was a punishment, a curse, a demon that had crawled in. So they shook rattles. They banged gongs. They tried to scare the thing back out through the hole in the head, and the surgery worked. We know it worked because the bone grew back. Smooth, healed edges mean the patient lived. For months. Sometimes for years. In the Inca Empire, between 1400 and 1500, surgeons working outdoors with stone tools survived their patients at a rate of around 80%. One group of skulls came in at 91%. Now hold that number, because in the American Civil War, more than 350 years later, with metal instruments and trained doctors, opening a skull killed roughly half the people on the table. Stone Age surgeons with rocks were better. But the saddest answer to this question isn't a hole in a skull, it's a single man. In 1991, 2 hikers in the Alps found a body frozen in the ice. He had been there 5,300 years. We call him Ötzi. His body was a museum of pain. Worn-out knees, a bad lower back, rotten teeth, arthritis grinding through his joints, and across his skin, 61 tattoos. Not pictures, not symbols, just small lines and crosses. Charcoal rubbed into shallow cuts. They aren't decoration. Almost every single one sits directly over a damaged, aching joint. His knees, his ankles, his spine. He was marking his pain, then treating it. Burning relief into his own skin, point by point, and those points line up with acupuncture more than 2,000 years before acupuncture is supposed to have existed in Asia. Picture it, a man alone on a cold mountain in pain that never stops, carving the map of that pain into his own body, because there was nothing else. Except he carried a little more. Fastened to leather straps in his gear, they found lumps of birch polypore, a fungus that fights inflammation and infection. A 5,300-year-old first aid kit, packed by a man who knew he was hurting and was trying in every way he had to stay ahead of it. That was the real condition. Not the herbs, not the surgery, the thing underneath all of it. Here's what we forget. Pain never left them. There was no 20-minute pill, no off switch. It was the background hum of every single life, from the first breath to the last. A bad tooth could end you, a broken leg could end you, and in between, you simply lived inside it. So they chewed the bark. They breathed the smoke. They laid the fish on the wound. They opened the skull. They inked the joint. They were not stupid. They were us. The same body, the same nerves, the same quiet animal fear of hurting, reaching into the dark for anything that might make it stop. And the strangest part is what they found is still here. The salicin in that willow bark is still inside your little white pill. The morphine in that poppy is still in the hospital down the road. We didn't invent these things. We just finally learned their names. You reached for that pill this morning and felt nothing. A reflex, a habit, a thing so small you've already forgotten doing it. But every ache you've ever silenced in 20 minutes, someone once carried for a lifetime. Every pain you sleep straight through, someone once stayed awake inside for years, with only bark and smoke and faith. A man on a mountain 5,300 years ago would have called your little white pill a miracle. We just call it Tuesday.